What is going on, YouTube? Welcome to another episode of the Fight Maniac podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in once again. Really appreciate all of you that are out there watching. As always, if you want to support your boy, don't forget, all you gotta do is hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and leave me a comment. Let me know how you guys are feeling today in this beautiful Monday start of the week. Yeah, I'm shooting this on Monday, but I probably won't upload it till tomorrow. I just got a lot of stuff to do today that I unfortunately don't have time to edit this, and it's just me, guys, so bear with me, please. But yes, beautiful start of the week. Obviously, we have a few things to talk about in this episode. I'm going to break down UFC 309 and give you my official predictions of what will happen this Saturday over at MSG in New York, New York. Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic and Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler. I gotta say, this card has my two favorite fighters in the whole UFC roster. Jon Jones, obviously, that might be a casual thing for me to say, but hey, ever since I started watching UFC, Jon Jones was my GOAT. Back then, they were calling him the GOAT. I don't know why they ever not call him the GOAT. There's arguments for other people, but whatever, I'm not gonna dive into that. And my other favorite fighter is none other than Charles "Do Bronx" Oliveira. I'm such an Oliveira fan, bro, that I've almost dyed my hair white when he fights. I'm like, should I do it? Should I not? You guys, let me know. Should I do it? Maybe for the next time. If he wins, if this video gets enough likes, I don't know what that number is, but if you guys go crazy with the likes and the comments and the views, and if Charles wins, I will dye my hair white. That's a promise right now. So if you want to see me, blonde, or not blonde, but bleached next week, go ahead and hit that like button. Anyways, yeah, those are my two favorite fighters in the whole UFC roster. So this is definitely one of my favorite cards. The rest of the card, we have some good fights. We have Bo Nickal versus Paul Craig. That should be fun. Other than that, there's not a whole lot to talk about, guys. We have Chris Weidman making a comeback. We have Jim Miller. So yeah, we'll break it down. But there's not a whole lot to work with this card. Obviously, the main event being probably one of the most anticipated fights in the year. So I'm excited for that. But the other topic I'm going to talk about after 309, it's actually, you know what? I'm going to talk about it before. Let's talk about it now. And then I'll break down 309 and I'll give you my official predictions. But this won't take too long. Anyways, I was watching the countdown, the UFC countdown that dropped over the weekend about UFC 309. And, this is something that has been going on now for, I would say, the past year or so. This is involving Francis Ngannou being literally, like, there's no other way to put it, being wiped and being erased from the UFC history books. I mean, they don't show his highlights. They show Jon Jones fighting Gustafsson. They show Jon Jones fighting Cyril Gane, fucking Lyoto Machida. They literally showed almost every single Jon Jones opponent ever. And then they show Stipe, they show him fighting DC and all these other guys, right? But then whenever Francis Ngannou knocked him out, they literally cut to a dark frame. First of all, they don't even show Francis. All they show is Stipe's back covering Francis, and then all you see is somebody swing, obviously Francis, and then it just cuts. And they show every other highlight. They show every other highlight for those two fighters they've shown. And I get it, that's not a highlight, obviously, but I mean, you promote other stuff, like when they're promoting Oliveira versus Chandler, they showed Oliveira getting hurt, they showed Oliveira, they've shown the side of Oliveira that everyone says a quitter. So even though they're not highlights, you use them to promote a fight. You use losses as well to promote a fight, and I like that. But the fight that completely removing Francis out of the video is wild. And this is not the first time, guys. There's been a lot of instances, and Dana White literally talked about this at a press conference. They asked him, blunt question. They said, "Hey, why are you deleting Francis from the broadcast, from the highlights, from the embeddeds? Like, literally, you don't see anything." The great Ariel Helwani talked about this last week, so if you want to go listen to him, go ahead and do it. Shout out to him; he's amazing. But it's not the first time. We've had an instance where Kamaru Usman was wearing a Francis Ngannou shirt and they blurred it. They literally blurred the brand and the name. Fishy. What else? When they were talking, when Israel Adesanya was talking about the three kings and talking about that history, right? Himself, Kamaru Usman, and Francis Ngannou, 3 African champions reigning at the same time at the UFC, which is amazing. They completely edited it. It's almost like, it's funny that Dana White, it's politically, I guess, aligned with Donald Trump. He sees what the media does to Donald Trump, and yet he lets the UFC do the exact same thing against Francis Ngannou. They literally edited the whole clip about Israel talking about Francis, and they made him sound like he only was talking about himself and Kamaru Usman. They literally flipped it. It's literally CNN style. They flipped it. They deleted Francis Ngannou out of the embeddeds, out of every single thing that the UFC could promote. They've removed him, and it makes no sense. And then you get Dana White straight up lying. Listen, I'm a Dana White fan, okay? But they straight up lie about this shit. They asked him in the press conference, and all he says, "Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that." He asks somebody, "Oh, do you know about that?" "Who knows? No, I don't know." Right? Like, okay, bro. You literally, I don't know. Dana White seems like the type of guy that would almost like micromanage a lot of things, right? Like he would probably tell the guys, not that he is a strict boss or anything, but he would seem like the type like, "Oh, make sure you include this on the embeddeds. Make sure you include this history and this, that." And if there's somebody that he doesn't want to show, I'm sure he would be the one to tell them, "Hey, make sure you don't include Francis or whoever," right? I don't know. It just all seems super fishy, and I think super fucked. And, Dana White really, I don't know. I love Dana, but he gets caught lacking with this topic because he also said that Francis would have made more money in the UFC if he would have stayed. Wrong. Maybe he's talking only about the PFL deal, which I'd get. Maybe the PFL didn't give him a full bag like the UFC would have. I think Dana White talks about being somewhere around the neighborhood of $8 million, if I'm not mistaken. Listen, with fighting Tyson Fury and with fighting Joshua, he probably made like 30 million, 40 million. I'm not, ballpark. I don't know. That's what other boxers like, obviously Canelo and them, they make that even more. So he was kind of a big name. I don't really know how those pay-per-views did numbers wise, but I mean, I have to guess that he probably made more for sure than 10 million each fight for sure. So you round up for 2 fights plus pay-per-view plus merch plus whatever endorsements, probably adds up to about 30 mil, so I don't think Dana believes that sounded so weird. I'm sorry if I said that fucked. I don't believe that Dana believes that Francis would have made more money in the UFC. There's no chance. There's absolutely no chance. So anyways, Dana claims he's fine with Francis, that he's got no beef. He claims that even though they don't, align, they don't see eye to eye, that he has no beef with them and he wishes the best. I mean, at the same time, like I don't believe that. It just looks out of everything Dana White says, and believe me, I pretty much watch almost every single presser, post-fight, pre-fight, so I kind of get to see him a lot. Obviously, we all do, obviously, but out of all the things he talks about, he talks about pay-per-views, he talks about fighter pay, he touches on controversial subjects every once in a while. Out of all the things he talks about, that one is the one that I'm like, you seem different. You know what I mean? You seem weird talking about this. It seems like you're lying. And I'm not, I can't read his facial expression or shit like that. I'm just going straight off vibes. So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I'm just going straight off vibes. So I just wanted to rant about that for a little bit, so, sorry. Now we can obviously get into the juicy stuff of UFC 309, being headlined by none other than John Bones Jones, the current, reigning, defending, undisputed heavyweight champ of the world, and the former light heavy champion of the world. Defending his belt against Stipe Miocic, the former heavyweight champ, obviously before Francis. This is a fight that, similar to the McGregor fight, I kind of lost interest in this fight after a little while. It got rebooked, and then it got injured, blah, blah, blah. We never knew if we were going to get the fight, and then we got booked, and then close to the date, boom, John Jones gets injured. So, fuck, it's just... it's a similar situation, but it's different than Connor's. With Connor's, the injury is there, so that's the similarity. But with Connor's, it was more of like they kept pushing it because maybe Connor wasn't ready because he wasn't in camp or whatever, And I got a whole lot to say about that, by the way. I'm not even going to talk about it, but whatever. Connor's an athlete; he's a professional. I don't know. I just don't understand why, if he's in camp for, say, 3 months, right? Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's say 2 months. If he's in camp for 2 months, and then you get a pinky toe injury, couldn't you heal that for a few days? Not a few days, sorry, a few weeks, and then go right back into camp? Like, are you gonna completely go off the rail in those couple of weeks of healing, that you're gonna like gain a bunch of weight and be out of shape in order for you to take another 6 months off? Like, motherfucker, get back into fucking camp and train it. I mean, it blows my mind. I don't know. And I get it, being the bigger star that he is. I get it. Sorry, I'm deviating too much. But anyways, I'm glad that John Jones is finally healed up, and finally we're getting the fight. Not the fight that I asked for, if I'm going to be honest with you. If I'm honest with you, not the super fight that I was anticipating or that I was wanting. Obviously, the fight we all want. Well, there's 2 fights that we all want at this division. We want either John Jones versus Tom Aspinall, or we want either John Jones versus Alex Pereira. Or the third fight is Alex Pereira versus Tom Aspinall. I think those are the only 3 fights that right now are making heavyweight hang on by a thread. Because let me tell you this, after John Jones retires and Stipe retires, which... that's one of my predictions. I think that they both are going to retire at the end of the fight. After that, who's Tom going to defend the belt to? I mean, there's not a whole lot of options. Let's look at the division right here, right now, right? He already beat Sergey Pavlovich. I guess we have Cyril Gane fighting versus Alexander Volkov here in a month or two. Yeah, in December. So we're going to get another number 1 contender. But after that, there's nothing. There's literally nothing. You had Curtis Blades, already beat by Tom Aspinall. I guess Gelton Almeida, I guess. He's ranked number 6, but I mean, he hasn't really, have a super impressive record, and he does have a loss against Curtis Blades, so earlier this year. So that's not a good look for him. So Rosenstruck, not really. I wouldn't say he would be up for a title. I think he definitely is like another 1 or 2, even though he did win against Tai Tuivasa earlier this year as well in August. But that's not really enough, especially if you look at Tai's record. That's not really enough to get a title shot. So I do think he needs 1 or 2 more. So yeah, I think we're going to get, after the John Jones fight, and then after Tom Aspinall defends his belt, it's going to get dicey for heavyweight. It's going to get really, really dicey, really slow. Not a lot of action, not a lot of people coming up through the grapevine, There's not a lot of guys right now. You have Derek Lewis that hasn't really performed that well. He was supposed to fight at UFC 308. Unfortunately, it wasn't 308. It was a fight night. It was the fight night that just happened with Brandon Moreno in Canada. He was supposed to fight, and unfortunately, it got, I think he got injured or something, but it got pushed till next year for May, so we have to wait on that. But even Derek Lewis, I mean, he's ranked, he's lost a few, and he's ranked number 11. So, I mean, even if he wins, he's going to have to pull another 1 or 2 wins to even get for a title shot, What I do see happening though is that whenever Jon Jones and Stipe retires, they're probably gonna, push some guys to kind of for the belt a little faster. You're gonna see like a similar situation to Alex Pereira with the fight that he just had against fucking Khalil Roundtree. They're gonna see some people were like, well, does Khalil really deserve this title shot? He hasn't really. You're gonna get a lot of that in heavyweight because it's just gonna get dicey. There's not gonna be a lot of people to defend that belt. Anyways, Jon Jones versus Stipe. Obviously, you have the GOAT and Jon Jones versus the heavyweight GOAT and Stipe Miocic. Jon Jones moving up. This is a tough fight to call because if you look at Jon Jones' previous fight at heavyweight, we didn't really learn a whole lot. We learned that he could take down a striker and submit him. That's really all we learned, but we didn't really learn anything about his cardio. I think that's going to be the biggest question here is if Stipe is able to survive the first 2 rounds. Jon Jones might get gassed. He even said it himself. This is not speculating, but he even said it himself on the go watch the embedded, not the embedded. Yeah, the embedded. What's it called? Not the countdown. Yeah, the embedded. Go watch that, and he even talks about himself that his cardio might not be good because he's just carrying around a lot more weight. And what I am glad is that Jon Jones took the time to actually gain weight the correct way. And I talked about this before about this is why I don't encourage Alex Pereira to move up to heavyweight, at least right now. It's because you can't just eat a few burgers to get, you can't just get fat and then move up. The way Jon Jones did it was perfect. He was powerlifting. He was doing I'm kidding. No, sorry. He was he was powerlifting and probably eating a lot of protein shakes. So I think that was the right way. He did it for like 3 years. Like it takes time. You cannot do it in 6 months. Similar situation to Max Holloway. The first time he moved up to lightweight, you could tell he was just kind of bloated and wasn't really that all in shape. And even Jon Jones' previous fight, you can kind of tell he had a little bit of a belly, right? And you see him now, and he looks a little more lean, a little more shredded. So I'm excited for that. I really do think that if we're going to get a good fight, we're going to get Stipe, finding some success early, I guess. I don't know, because when you look at Jon Jones' fights and the fights that he has struggled with, it's been on the striking, right? Versus Gustafsson. He struggled with the striking. He was getting kind of pieced up by Gustafsson. Same with, what's the guy's name? Reyes. Same with Reyes. He was getting kind of outclassed in the striking. So I think that's where, if we do see Stipe having an advantage, that's where it would be. Because on the ground, it will be over. On the ground, there is nobody like Jon Jones. I don't care what your name is. I don't care if you're Dagestani. I don't care if you're a fucking world gold medalist wrestler. I don't care. In the mat, there's nobody like Jon Jones. He is nasty, especially with the ground and pound. That's where he is just absolutely disgusting with the ground and pound. And he also got submissions. He's also choked people before. Obviously he tapped out Sirogan. He choked out. One of my favorite submissions ever, by the way, is when he tapped out Lyoto Machida. And there's an epic picture of Lyoto Machida literally lying just dead on the mat, and Jon Jones walking away like a savage. I really love that picture. I want to print it out and put it here somewhere, actually, now that I thought about it. But yeah, he has just overall a really, really well-rounded game. And obviously, we're talking about the GOAT. Again, I'm not glazing him right now, and I'm not saying he's just going to dominate. I'll give you my official prediction here in a little bit. Stipe definitely has a chance. Everybody has a chance. This is MMA. This could be Jon Jones. This could be Jon Jones versus the guy that cleans after the UFC event, and that guy has a chance. That's how crazy MMA is. That guy has a chance. I think if Stipe is able to kind of weather an early storm and definitely stuff early takedowns, that's going to be key. That's going to be key for Stipe to survive the early rounds. Hopefully Jon Jones slows down, gets a little gassed, and from there, Stipe can then find some success on the feet. Because, dude, Stipe is also By the way, he is classified as a wrestler, but I mean, he fucking cracks, dude. I mean, you forget some of his highlights. He has some good fucking knockouts, dude. Specifically, he's really good. If you see, I forget who he knocked out this way, but he was pulling back. He was making the guy chase him, and the Stipe just went boop, right, and the guy flattened. So he's really good at counter striking. Really good with distance. Sorry about that. He's really good at distance and good striking. Labeled as a wrestler, but honestly, I do not. Fuck. I mean, I'll have to go back and look at some of his fights, but like, I feel like most of his fights he's kept on the feet. You know, especially if you see the finishes. He has that win against Daniel Cormier by KO, against Junior Dos Santos by KO. I mean, he's got a bunch of KOs, and even though he's labeled as a wrestler, his striking is fucking nasty. So don't sleep on it. Don't sleep on it. Stipe definitely has a chance. And like I said, that's going to be key for him. The key for Stipe is going to be stuffing the early takedowns, surviving an early storm of John Jones, some front kicks to the chest, to the stomach, maybe even to the face. Definitely stuffing takedowns, and hopefully John Jones gasses out by round 3 and Stipe can get to work. That's going to be key. That's going to be key. So I see this fight playing out that way. Now, my official prediction, though, is definitely John Jones. I'm going John Jones all the way. I'm being a little biased here. I'm a huge fan, but I just think it would be a perfect closing fight, career-ending, fight if he's able to somehow finish Stipe in the first round. I think it will just solidify his reign. And I mean, he is already solidified, but there's still people that doubt, obviously. It will just literally solidify him as the undoubted reigning GOAT of the UFC, in my opinion. It's funny, he talks a little bit about, if you watch the Embedded, he talks about beating Sorogan so easy that he was kind of upset. He said that he was ready for war. His words, not word by word, but this is what he said. He was ready for war. He was ready for blood. He was ready for a battle. And it didn't happen. He ended up winning kind of easily, which I don't know if he's kind of bragging. Maybe he was kind of bragging. But I think if he's able to do that again and he's like, oh shit, well, that was kind of easy. Maybe, and then just maybe, he will not retire, right? But if Stipe gives him a fight, if this goes the distance, or if it's a close decision and they both struggle and it was a fucking battle and there was blood like he wanted, in that case, then I think he'll for sure retire. I think he'll retire. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to tell. I already predicted officially that both of them are gonna retire at the end of the fight. So I'll just stick to that. I'm not gonna switch it up. But if John Jones gets past Stipe in the first 2 rounds, whether by KO or submission or whatever, that's it. I mean, there's no question, there's no argument, and he should retire. He should retire because, especially, I mean, he has nothing to prove. He already beat the best, and he did it at 2 weight classes. And yeah, you might be upset about the Tom Aspinall fight, but I will say that fight was all timing. I think Tom Aspinall is too young, or not too young, but I think he definitely just came up to the championship level, way too late. He's not super young, right? Tom Aspinall is 20. He's 31. Wow, I thought he was in his 20s. He's 31, ladies and gentlemen. So he's not that young. Everyone talks about him like this kid that just came up. No, I mean, John Jones is fucking 35, dude. They're only 4 years old. They're only 4 years apart. They're only 4 years apart. Wow. So, I mean, I didn't know that. In all honesty, I did not know that. I thought Tom Aspinall was in his early 20s. I thought he was like 25. this kind of makes me change my mindset a little bit. Now I kind of wish they would fight, because I was about to go into this whole rant about how it's a timing issue. How Tom Aspinall was a bit too young and John Jones was a bit too old. And when you have that, unfortunately, it doesn't work out a lot. You don't get the best product that we would have gotten. If both these guys would have met 5 years ago, at light heavyweight or a heavyweight, banger, fireworks. And I'm not saying they not can still produce that. Again, now that I looked at their ages, I think I changed my mind. I think I do want John Jones to not retire and fight Tom Aspinall, because it's only a 4-age gap, bro. John Jones is 35, my guy. John Jones, let me look at it again to make sure I'm not tripping, because, dude, what the fuck? Yes, John Jones, age 35. Tom Aspinall, age 31. Dude, make the fight. Make the goddamn fight. I think make the fight. I changed my mind, and I think that they should definitely fight. So, but I'll talk about that after the matter, because I don't want to disrespect Stipe. I don't want to just automatically rule him out, right? I think like everybody's doing that. Everybody's ruling him out. It's a tough night for him, not gonna lie. I mean, you're going against a guy that has been more active than you, still inactive. Stipe also, remember, hasn't fought in fucking 4 years. So John Jones, literally a little bit more active, but still inactive, right? Only fought once in the past, 4 years? But he's gone through camp and he's ready. So I think it's going to be overall a good product. But Stipe definitely has a long night ahead of him. And I think if he plays it right, I think if he studies some of those fights against Dominic Reyes, against Gustafsson, hopefully he's able to find a hole or a gap in John Jones's game in order for him to do something. And I think that's the key. Sorry, I'm going to repeat myself once again, but the key for Stipe here is weather the early storm, stuff a takedown or two, obviously stuff as many as you need to, but survive the first 2 rounds, and I think you're gonna be in the game. I think you're gonna have a fight on your hands, ladies and gentlemen. So my official prediction for this fight, it will be John Jones round 2. I don't want to disrespect Stipe by saying round 1, even though that definitely could happen. But I think round 2, John Jones submission. Yeah, I know. Kind of boring though, right? I mean, I wish this was a fucking war and a battle, but I guess we'll see. And obviously, I'll be here to talk about it afterwards, guys. Don't worry. Next up, we do have the co-main event of the evening in Charles do Bronx Oliveira, my second, probably my first favorite fighter, on top of John Jones, right? Not skill-wise, just entertainment-wise. I love every time Charles fights. I probably rewatch at least once a week his fights versus Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, the first Chandler fight, the Beneil Dariush. Like, this guy is a savage. He's defeated most of the top contenders at lightweight, and I'm super excited to see him fight. It is a rematch. Obviously, the first time that they met, Michael Chandler rocked him early in the fight. Everybody thought he was about to win. He said himself he felt he was moments away from being a champion, that unfortunately he's never been in the UFC. And Oliveira, I guess, kind of just was good at surviving, and then eventually it was towards the end of the round. So, he survived, and then the round was over shortly after that. And then the second round, this is tough because mentality-wise, this has to be so hard. I mean, if you're on your bench and you're saying, "Oh, this guy's cooked. This guy's I'm about to win. I'm about to be the champ. This guy's tagged. He probably hasn't even recovered. I'm about to be the champ, right?" And you can see his coach too be like, "Oh man, you got." I don't know exactly what he said, but he said something along the lines of like, "You got it. Look at him. He's done. He's beat. He's broken." Oh, I think that's what he said. He said he's broken. And then come back out there, bro, and you got clipped, right? You got clipped, sick when he should have sagged. You gotta wonder though, right? Like, was that skill from Charles Oliveira's aspect? I will say another thing to keep in mind for this fight is that Charles Oliveira, he took Michael Chandler's back. And if you're unfamiliar with Charles Oliveira, let me just tell you, he is the most dangerous submission artist in the UFC. Okay, he has the most submissions ever. He holds that record. I think also for the most finishes and the most submissions. And the most bonuses or performance of the nights. I have to look that up. I'm sorry, but he definitely has a few of those stats. He's a fucking finisher. He's a master at jiu-jitsu. So if he gets your back, it's pretty much over. However, Michael Chandler was on a tough position and he was able to get out of it. Not only get out of it, but then reversed. And he ended up on top of Charles. He didn't really do anything after that. In the embedded, he was like, oh, and then I started landing some vicious ground and pound. It wasn't that vicious. It was all right. Either way, though, props to him and shout out to him because I don't see a lot of people doing that to Charles. I mean, not only getting out of that position, but then flipping it and ending it on top. It's kind of crazy. And I think Charles is a guy that he doesn't mind being bottom. I mean, sounds gay, but he doesn't mind being on the bottom. I mean, I think he feels super confident in himself that like if he's on the bottom, he's gonna potentially catch somebody with something. And that's not always worked his way because against Islam he kind of gave the position really easily, ended up on bottom and ended up getting submitted obviously, and that was tough. So it doesn't really always work his way, but most of the time, if he's on the bottom, he's still dangerous. He's still very dangerous. I think even in that Chandler fight, he kind of attempted to throw a triangle. But no, it didn't happen, obviously. But obviously, then round number 2 comes up. Chandler is pumped. Chandler's thinking he's about to be champ, and he gets clipped, right? And you got to wonder, I mean, what would have happened if Chandler doesn't get clipped? Can Oliveira keep the fight going in order for us to say, you're the better mixed martial artist? Because I think that's the main question, right? When somebody gets clipped like that, he said it himself, he was stepping back and his hands were down, right? So it's a mistake, obviously. I'm not taking anything away from Charles. It's obviously a mistake that he did. Therefore, Charles capitalized, and that night he was the better fighter. But you got to realize, like, if he doesn't land that right hand, would have he landed it later on the fight, or would have Chandler's then found success, or would have been a close war? We don't know. Obviously, we'll never know, and we'll have to wait until see how this second fight plays out. I will say Chandler being the more, I guess, explosive guy. Chandler's a guy that, I mean, he comes out swinging for the fences, bro. And it's also a something that has affected him. It's worked for him, but it's affected him. When you do that, you put yourself in this 50-50 situations that you might win, but you also might lose just like that super quickly. If you win, it's like, oh my God, amazing knockout and knockout of the year, right? You know what I mean? And fight of the year, but he's had those. But if it doesn't work his way, we've seen what happens. He unfortunately gets rocked and unfortunately, doesn't do a lot of defensive work when he's in that mode. I hope that he's at least able to kind of say, hey, I'm fighting the best fighters in the UFC. I mean, you see what happened the last time. You literally make one little mistake and it's over. You know what I mean? You see what happened against Dustin Poirier. I mean, he knows that. And I don't know why he hasn't changed his style a little bit. I hope he does for this fight. I hope he says, instead of coming out like a fucking maniac, a fight maniac, instead of coming out like a fucking maniac in the first round, why don't you just slow down? Just get your timing done, get your footwork, your distance established, and then go to work, You don't gotta, and he always headhunts a lot too, which is crazy. He winds up these crazy looping shots and he headhunts and he gets tagged for it. He gets punished. And I will say, if you look at some of Charles' fights, he's had a similar style. He has learned to kind of tone it down a little bit. We saw it against Sarukian. We saw it against Dariush. But, against Justin Gaethje, he came out like a fucking banshee as well. he came out swinging for the fences as well. And he does a really fantastic job at mixing some kicks, mixing some knees. He has a beautiful flying knee that he tries always. And I think Chandler's got to be careful with those, because those flying knees can come down the middle, especially if Chandler's kind of like his traditional kind of stance, more like a boxing stance. He's also very low to the ground and very wide spreaded. His legs are always super wide and he's always kind of bouncing up and down. So, a flying knee could come sometime. I think what Oliveira has going against him is that he's a little bit skinnier than a lot of these lightweight guys, right? Chandler is definitely, by the way, phenomenal shape. Chandler in the embedded, bro, he looks crazy shredded. It's wild. So I think, and Oliveira's gotten shredded as well in the past couple of years, but he's still more of the skinny type. So even though he has amazing jiu-jitsu, I think, you have to get somebody to the ground. And unfortunately, I don't think his wrestling is that amazing. And being often the skinnier guy, Michael Chandler also has a wrestling background, and he's obviously really good at defending takedowns and even taking people down and flipping positions and scrambling and doing some of that some of that chain wrestling. He's really good at that. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens if Charles is able to even take him down, or if Michael Chandler shoots for a takedown and somehow Oliver ends up on top. I think there'll be a opportunity there, but it's a tough fight for sure to call. But my official prediction for this one is also going to be biasly my favorite fighter, Charles "The Bronx" Oliveira. I don't think he's going to finish Chandler. I think we're going to get a decision win. I'm going to call out for a decision win by your boy Charles Oliveira. I think it's going to go like 3-2. Might be close, might be a close fight. But I think after Chandler realizes, like, okay, I can stop his takedowns. I can probably reverse some of his jiu-jitsu attempts, submissions. And as long as I keep my hands up, and as long as I don't, fucking put my hand down and walk away while my hand is down for a perfect moment. Literally, it was the perfect momentum where, like, he was walking back, his hands were down. As you walk back, you lose balance and you get clipped and you go down. Not necessarily probably knocked out, but because you were out of balance stepping back, you get knocked down. And from there is a nightmare, obviously. So I think if Chandler realizes some of those things, he could have an argument for winning the... By the way, is this a 5-round or a 3rd round? I never know. And I wish they would tell us in these fucking websites, because in the ESPN website, it does not say. Let me see in the UFC website if it says anything about it being 5 rounds. I wish it's 5 rounds, dude. I mean, it has to be 5 rounds. I literally had to Google it because it's not in the fucking website, so unless I'm missing it. But it is a 5-round fight, so I'm excited for that. I think that benefits Charles. I think Charles might have a better cardio, especially if Chandler is able to, if he comes out swinging and being wild, he's going to gas out for sure. So hopefully he learns and says, hey, this is a 5-round fight. Let me chill out and start off the fight a little slower. Hopefully he can do something from that. So yeah, my official prediction for this is Charles Oliveira. Either by decision win or submission. I think that's going to be the one. I don't think he knocks him out. I think Chandler will learn from his mistake in the first fight. But I do think Charles could definitely pull off the win. And Chandler is the obviously big underdog too. I mean, the underdogs are not bad here. Stipe is a huge underdog, plus 500. Michael Chandler is plus 220. You can make some money with Chandler. I think Chandler has a better chance of winning than Stipe. And even though I'm a huge Oliveira fan, I wouldn't mind if they go 1-1, because then that could probably set up another fight later on as well, a trilogy. So I wouldn't be hugely mad about that, but I'm a huge Charles Oliveira fan, so I really wish him the best and I hope he wins. But another fight that I'm excited for, and talking about underdogs, holy shit, Paul Craig plus 650 against Bo Nickel minus 1,000 favorite. I mean, if you're going to bet on Bo Nickel, you're going to make almost no money, bro, because he's a fantastic... I mean, honestly, bro, I'm going to put some money on Paul Craig because Paul Craig looks like a dude that should have a better record. I mean, unfortunately, looking at some of his previous fights here, he is in a little bit of a pickle. He's lost 4 out of his last 5 fights. That is not definitely good. He lost against Brendan Allen. He won against Muniz, which is Andrea Muniz. That was his last win. That was over a year ago. And then his last fight was at UFC 301 against Voralo, Caio Voralo, who lost that by TKO. So round 2. So tough record for Paul Craig. Is going to be really, really tough to bet on him. But those odds look fucking good. Not gonna lie, they look fucking juicy. But obviously, Bo Nickal has a amazing reputation of being probably one of the best wrestlers in the UFC. Everybody, including myself, wants to see him fight Khamzat. I think that's if you like wrestling, that's gonna be definitely a fight for you to stay tuned to in the future. And last time we saw Bo Nickal out, it was at UFC 300. He won by round 2 against Cody Brundage, and even himself, he said it that he didn't feel that great about his performance. At the end of the fight, he was kind of doing this a little bit, I don't know. And yeah, it's just a lack of experience. He's only been in the UFC for literally like a year, over a year almost. His first fight was, let me see here, March 2023. So yeah, almost 2 years, but still, under 2 years in the UFC and, getting impressive wins, but still hasn't fought anybody that's obviously at the top of the division. Paul Craig, I do believe he is currently not ranked, right? Let me triple check that here. Rankings, middleweight. Yeah, he is not ranked currently. So, still fighting unranked opponents. I do think after this one, though, Paul Craig is coming up with a loss against Borrallo, who is ranked, I want to say. Yeah, he's ranked number 6. So, Borrallo is ranked number 6. So, I think if Bo Nickal is able to get past Paul Craig, now we're definitely looking at a ranking opponent. And no, he's not going to fight Khamzat, okay? Khamzat right now is arguably the number 1 contender for the middleweight division. Possibly, we haven't heard news about possibly surpassing Sean Strickland. We'll see what happens there. So that fight, it won't happen for at least another year. Khamzat is going to go on a title run. He's going to fight for the belt, or, maybe even defend it at some point. And Bo Nickal still needs, I'd say 2 to 3 fights for him to be even at that level, And it depends. He could go out there and smoke Paul Craig in the first round and then smoke somebody ranked in the first round. And then who knows? Maybe they'll put him up there, or maybe they'll put him for a number 1 contender fight, which I wouldn't be mad about. But yeah, I think he still has a long way to go. Regardless, though, this one's going to be easy to predict. Obviously, I'm choosing Bo Nickal as the easy prediction to make. I think Bo Nickal, I want to say by submission. Yeah, obviously, that's the easy bet to win right now. The guy's a phenomenal grappler and wrestler, and he obviously is also a decent striker, but just needs to have a little bit more experience. Going back to that Cody Brundage fight, he wasn't fully satisfied with his performance, especially in the striking. And I want to say maybe he even struggled a little bit to take down Cody Brundage. Let me go back and look at some of his stats real quick. You'll see 300. So he had 3 out of 6 takedowns completed. So he struggled a little bit. He definitely, Cody Brundage definitely stuffed 3 takedowns. So that's good for him. And, I think it's good though. I like this. I like that better than if he would have just smoked Cody Brundage in the first round and taken it down, submitted him, right? Because that's kind of like the Khabib approach, or even taking him down and just keep him down there for 5 rounds or 3 rounds, whatever they're 3-round fights. But if he just does that for the whole 3 rounds, just takes him down and just keeps him there, again, that's the Khabib approach that I'm not a huge fan of. You know what I mean? So I do like when fights get more interesting. I do like that Bo is going through some adversity because that's going to help him grow as a character, and it's going to help him get the experience that he needs. Because if he gets caught in a situation like, like almost like Hamzat a little bit, not quite, but almost like if you get to the top 3 and you still haven't been tested, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing, right? Because if you do get tested by the number 3, the number 2, the number 1 guy, it's not gonna be just a test. you're gonna be over. The fight's gonna be over. That's when you don't want to get tested. You want to get tested earlier in your career when you're fighting unranked guys, so that the stakes are not as high. Maybe if you lose a round, you're like, okay, I'll learn from that. I'll fix my mistakes and I'll do it again, right? Even if you lose a fight, it's not the end of the world. Nowadays, some guys love to have the record of unbeaten, and only a few guys are able to kind of have that, but it's inevitable. I think it's inevitable. If everybody might lose, it would have happened to Khabib if he would have stayed competing. I think he inevitably would have lost to somebody. Who? I don't know. Maybe Conor, maybe Charles, maybe Chandler, maybe who knows. But it's inevitable. But all I'm saying is that I do like that Bo Nickal went through some adversity in that fight at UFC 300. It builds character, and it just tells me that for this fight against Paul Craig, he might take it even more serious. He's going to train even harder. And he's going to look at Paul Craig and say, okay, this is a guy that has a little bit more experience now in the UFC than Cody Brandish had. Definitely step up in competition. But overall, I expect a good fight from Bo, and I expect him to win rather easily. If these odds are reflecting of that, I think he might win rather easily. So excited for that. But hey, if you're a betting man and you like to take a risk, I wouldn't mind putting anything less than $100 with Paul Craig would give you good amount of money for sure. Definitely in the hundreds. We have a few fights here as well. We have Chris Weidman coming back against Eric Anders. I didn't like the way Chris Weidman came back the last time. I thought it was a terrible matchup for him. Who did they give him? They gave him fucking... Oh, Brendan Tavares. Yeah, right. That was his comeback fight. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So he had one more fight. I forgot. He had one more fight against Bruno Silva, and he won that. So shout out for that. Excited that he's coming off of a win. That definitely is going to help him build character. If you don't know, by the way, before I even talk about this, Chris Weidman had probably one of the worst injuries in the UFC. Him and Anderson Silva. And talk about odds. Talk about fucking weird things from the universe. Anderson Silva breaks his leg against Chris Weidman, and then Chris Weidman breaks his leg the exact same way against Uriah Hall. It was against Uriah Hall, and it's a nasty fucking injury, and it's the same thing that it's similar to what Conor had, but it was even worse for these guys because it was when they threw the kick, and the leg just gave out. It literally looked like rubber. It looked like you took like one of those rubber toys and just bend the leg. I mean, it looked like the leg just completely reversed, and it really definitely went the way it shouldn't have. And the skin was the only thing holding the leg together. Like literally the bone was completely separated. And it's nasty, and it takes forever to heal up, and it's one of those damn near career-ending injuries, but luckily Chris Weidman came back. Unfortunately, came back to a loss, right after that. And I remember I was watching that fight, bro, and I was watching him throw leg kicks, and I was like, oh my God. Like, I just wish he doesn't fucking... So he took about 2 years off, and then lost against Brad Tavares, but then came back with the dub against Bruno Silva. So I'm glad for that. And I said it back in the day that Brad Tavares was kind of like a bad matchup for him. But Bruno Silva was a better one, and he got past that, so I'm glad for him. And now he is here, obviously, at UFC 309, fighting Eric Anders, who, I'm not going to lie, I'm not super familiar with Anders. So let me look at his record right now real quick. He's coming off of a win against Jamie Pickett. That's probably one of the most impressive one. And then after that, he has before that, he has a few losses, unfortunately. And yeah, not the best record, but definitely a contender. I believe he might be unranked, right? Let me double check. Yeah. This fight is not ranked for sure. It's also in the prelims, so it's a good fight to watch for free. We also have Jim Miller making a comeback again. Not a comeback. He fought at UFC 300 kind of recently, earlier than the year, but I'm excited for that. I'm excited for that fight because Jim Miller is, literally one of the OGs of the UFC. The guy has fought at every single 100 UFC pay-per-view. UFC 100, UFC 200, and UFC 300. So that alone is amazing. I think he has some crazy records, like the most fights, the most wins, I want to say. Something crazy like that. But he has a few stats that are insane. He's also a super dangerous guy with the submissions, amazing grappler and jiu-jitsu guy. So definitely watch out for those. I might predict here a Jim Miller submission. I think that's what's going to happen. So I'm excited for that. But that's going to be all for today, guys. Thank you so much for staying tuned. And as always, don't forget, hit the like, hit the subscribe, and leave me a comment. Let me know if you agree with anything I just said. Am I just fucking going crazy here? Am I just yapping? Or am I speeding facts? Please let me know, guys. But anyways, thank you and have a great rest of your day. I will be here to talk about the fights after the fight, obviously. And I'm also going to break down Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson here probably tomorrow. So stay tuned for that video as well. As always, peace.